Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to OpenLine. This is a special segment that we do, usually the last Thursday, but because of Thanksgiving, we've moved it up. This is Ask a Lawyer, where you, the viewer, get to call in and ask your legal questions. I'm Nick Leonardo, the News Channel 5 legal analyst, along with our guest this evening, Kevin Kennedy. And the phone lines are lit up, Kevin.
They stayed lit up all night. That's great.
Let's get back to Charlie. I think Charlie's been holding here for a while, so we told him that we would make sure we get back with him. Good evening, Charlie. Are you there?
Yes, sir. How y'all doing tonight?
We're doing great,
well,
Charlie.
I want to ask Mr. Kennedy a thing. My dad passed away back in February the 28th, 2012. And he had remarried and everything after my mom had passed away. And into the marriage, about a year and a half, he seen that she was kind of money hungry and everything, which he had already put everything, all the assets and everything into a trust.
Okay, go ahead.
An irrevocable trust. But a year and a half into the marriage, he wrote up a postnuptial.
Okay.
Which said that she should be took care of for a year after his death.
All right.
And to this day, she's still being took care of, but the trustee that's over the trust is already run through over $6 million.
Wow. Well, it sounds to me like in that situation is commonly, we hear that quite often, but the beneficiaries of that trust should hire a lawyer, and they can file motions with the court and say, hey, this is in excess, we want a full accounting because this is not within the parameters of the trust or even that will. If he wrote a postnuptial agreement, somebody needs to evaluate, was that a legal document? Was it done under duress? Was there misrepresentation? And so again, you've got to advance your cause. I'm all the time preaching. I say take a proactive approach and let's use some creativity to protect the family.
That's good advice. Let's see here on line 1. I believe we have Pete. Are you there, Pete?
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening to you. What's your question for Kevin?
Well, my question is sort of confusing. I was power of attorney over an 86-year-old aunt, and she only had one heir. Actually, when she died, the power of attorney, from what I understand, becomes void.
That's correct.
However, dealing with the Social Security office here in town where I live, about as helpful as pouring water on a forest fire.
Yes, come on and tell it.
But the problem was, now Social Security, even though they were notified of her death, I have a confirmation of facts, phone calls, the bank was sent a letter advising them that the heir would be the one that they needed to talk to in the future.
Right.
That being the power of attorney was void, I had no further interest in it.
Okay.
Now Social Security sent me a bill 3.5 months later advising I have to pay that money back because I was the one that was listed as handling her affairs. I was not an heir. I was not a beneficiary. I've never received the money. The bank will not release who they gave the money to, but I know from one of the heirs' wives that yes, he did receive the money.
Yes.
And the package was sent to him explaining the situation 5.5 months ago.
Wow. Well, again, here the problem that's confronted with you, and because I want people to step up and try to help elderly people, they need someone to take on the power of attorneys. But remember this, when you take on that responsibility, you never dreamed he was going to get sucked into a problem that he really didn't benefit from. So I would try to talk to a lawyer and see if I can get that resolved. Because you reach out to help somebody, and I want to encourage people to try to help. But I want you also to know you can't really serve on a board of directors without taking on some responsibility.
That's right.
You can't really take a power of attorney without taking on some responsibility. And you do the best you can, but even then, you can be brought right back into a problem.
That's exactly right. It's a lot of responsibility associated with those documents.
That's a very interesting situation on him.
All right, here on line 2, we've got Shelby. Are you there, Shelby?
Yes.
Well, good evening to you. What's your question for Mr. Kennedy?
I have a child custody question. I'm married and have a little stepson that I'm very involved with. We have thought about moving to the county that he is from, so that we can have more time with them, and we'd like to share partial custody.
Yes.
We have mentioned to the little boy that we are thinking about moving closer to be closer to him, and apparently he has told his mother, and now she is thinking about moving.
Right. Well, you know, again, we hear this every day. We have in Tennessee what's known as the Parental Relocation Act. And so is it theoretically, I would file my petition, I would send my notice, I'd take it in front of the court, I'd say, now, Judge, don't let this lady spitefully move when we're trying to establish a relationship with the child. And again, if the judge determined that this is nothing but vengeance and this is an attempt to try to keep a father from having visitation, having a meaningful relation, that judge will carefully consider. So, well, yes, ma'am, if that's the way you want to act, you're free to move anytime, anywhere, but the child remains in this county because we think the child's doing well in this school and now that his father's here. So again, let's move forward, and if you're thinking about this, then I would talk to a lawyer very carefully, and I would try to make sure that that's not going to be accused of me and how I have to be on the defensive.
That's a good question. That comes up quite a bit. All right, let's see here on line 4 is Kat. Are you there, Kat?
Hello.
Hi, go right ahead. Nice to talk to you.
So I'm actually in the 7th grade, and our class is doing a mock trial, and I was picked to be the attorney, and I've done some research on my own, but I was wondering if I could ask, what is a really good way to write an opening and closing speech for the prosecuting side?
Okay, I love that.
Great question.
You know, I was a 4-H participant in the speaking contest. One of the greatest things my father ever did, my dad was a barber, and he encouraged me. He said, Kevin, you've got a little talent in public speaking. And he went on, and so with that, my mother was a banker, and she helped write those because I was a kid, didn't know. So I like this question, and I like for you, it just gets down to just storytelling.
Right.
When I was at the law school, they gave a standing ovation at my closing argument. I'll never forget all of my law students, they were all there, and the judge, he's getting ready to give the critique. Well, oh brother, did I go too far? I thought he might say, Mr. Kennedy, do you know the difference in a courtroom and a circus? I didn't know, but I'd given him my best. And I remember he said, well, Mr. Kennedy, that was almost evangelical because I love to tell stories, and I love to be animated, and I love to connect with the jury. And so, yes, that's what I lay out the facts on how it's going to fold. Make it interesting, make it fascinating, connect with the people, and pour your heart into it. There's a lot to be said about a speaker that believes in the cause, can share with passion. Nick, you got something you'd like to add?
I'd agree with you, everything you just said there, Kat. I mean, I would make sure, you know, it's kind of like art. You want to make sure that it resonates with folks. And so just tell the truth, tell it from your heart, and don't read it. Whatever you do,
I love that.
Get your thoughts together and hold their attention. Folks, we got to take a break, and we'll be right back with our final segment of Ask an Attorney.